We'll move on to an update regarding the de-annexation of certain property within the Ignite Lake and River districts, and Jim Hammond has a report for us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I begin to provide you an update on this, I wanted to share a couple of other comments. I appreciate the Chief's report tonight. I felt that it was important that you hear our current status of crime reports and crime stats within the city as we work through the budget process, because I want you to understand why we still feel the need to bring the number of patrolmen to a higher level throughout the city. I didn't want to scare you, but wanted you to understand that need. Secondly, I do have a concern about our deputy city administrator. The number of things that I hear he's going to fix, he might be afraid to turn around and run back to Morro Bay. So we have to have some realistic expectations about what this gentleman can do. Progress on de-annexation is moving forward. I'm very excited about that because I think it's a great process that we are beginning for the state of Idaho that nobody else is doing yet. The critical issues are that the maps and the legal descriptions and getting those down to the State Tax Commission so they can review them and approve them. And the legal descriptions and the maps have been developed and sent to the Tax Commission. So they are now in the process of reviewing those. I think we're on a good timeline for that part of the issue. We expect then to be able to bring an ordinance, which is the other critical part, to you in July. I originally thought we could do that at the July 5 meeting. Because we are taking a more cautious approach and running this issue through our Planning and Zoning Commission, we are asking you to have a special meeting on the 13th of July. The Planning Commission will meet on the 12th, and then you will meet on the 13th just for this ordinance only. And then in terms of what we were doing for de-annexation, that has changed, and you can see on the maps, this is the lake map and this is the river map, but what I really want to show you is the lake district, and you can see that we're pulling a lot less of the properties out of the lake district and a lot more out of the river district. And this was at the request of the Urban Renewal Agency itself. They felt that they could better continue to meet their needs within both the lake and the river district if we pulled out properties in this manner. Now, some concern has been expressed regarding what has been called opportunity costs that are lost. Well, this de-annexation effort does not remove any funding from any of the planned projects within either district, but on top of that, it also leaves money remaining within each district for other projects that might occur that are not yet planned. The biggest concern has been the obligation that Ignite Coeur d'Alene has with Washington Trust Bank. And now, the way this has been restructured, the cash flow for the Lake District is not significantly changed from what it is right now. So there is still ample cash flow to give Washington Trust Bank the insurances that they need. Beyond that, if you have questions of finance, John Austin is here, but mainly what we want you to do, what I wanted you to know tonight, is that we are progressing, that the Planning and Zoning Commission will consider this. They only look at it relative to the comprehensive plan. In other words, does this de-annexation fit into the comprehensive plan? Well, there's really, when you look at comprehensive plans, it has more to do with use than anything, and it's a general plan for the city in terms of where things are going. And what we're doing won't affect the larger comprehensive plan for the city. And with that, I would stand for any questions, Your Honor.
Questions for Jim? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jim, there's a couple new things here that have changed since the last time we addressed this issue. The P&Z having to look over the de-annexation with regards to the comprehensive plan, where did that come from? Is that in the code?
The change is that in some circles, this is still considered a plan modification. And P&Z should look at any plan modification. That's the part that's in the code. So although my interpretation of the newest part of the code says we don't have to go through that, with some discussion with our attorneys and there have been a lot of attorneys involved in this, we decided that it was probably the safer route to still take it through P&Z, just so that that was not called to question as we move this process forward.
Well, I hope that's fun for them. The other thing that's changed, and I see on the, nice work, Mr. Austin, thank you so much, is that before there was a stipulation that the Urban Renewal Agency would be selling its property, but that's no longer the case?
Selling property?
Yeah, they had on there that as part of the calculations on one stage, and I don't know whether it was our meeting or their meeting, but there was talk about them selling the properties that they own south of City Hall, in the Fort Grounds, downtown, and that's not happening now.
That is still a determination for the agency. The change that we worked with them, the change that has been created, allows them to hold on to that property. It isn't essential for the plan to move forward in terms of the de-annexation.
Okay.
And in terms of cash flow.
In your opinion, has the Urban Renewal Agency been cooperating with the city?
Well, let's just say there certainly has been some reticence, reluctance on their part. They have some concerns, as I shared earlier, about future lost opportunities. And my response has been, there may be future lost opportunities, but we need to meet the needs of public safety right now. And you as a council have that accountability to your community to meet those needs now. And if that means that there's some future thing that we'd like to have that we now have to find we either don't get and I don't know what that might be, or it's something that would be nice, maybe you fund it a different way. But I think that we all agree that the basic issue of public safety is something that we all have an obligation towards, and I wouldn't be doing my job to you if I wasn't doing my best to make sure that we did meet those basic needs for the community.
You answered my question most delicately. I would have chosen a different course based on what I've known and what I've heard. The motion that we're making, or that would be made here, is we need to approve the submission of plan amendments and request approval by the Urban Renewal Agency. Is their approval really necessary here, or are we just trying to play nice?
Play nice.
We are trying to play nice. You think that they would play nice, but I'll
We
talk
always
more
want
later.
to play nice, Counselor.
Thank you.
Ron?
Yeah, Jim, you stated that the property that Ignite, or so whatever they're called now, down in the Fort Grounds, they want to keep that property that they have down there? And,
I'm sorry.
no, and what was the other property?
It's
Oh,
right here
Tubbs
south
Hill?
of City Hall. I didn't say they want to keep them. All I was saying is that selling them isn't integral to their cash flow relative to the de-annexation. They have not expressed an opinion one way or the other regarding the commission, Urban Renewal Commission, has not expressed an opinion one way or the other. I don't think that issue has even been discussed by them recently. And I look to the mayor to dispute that.
There's been some initial discussion and a few just preliminary plans. I think the long-term plan is for the agency to declare that to be surplus property and dispose of it in some way, and that those funds would come back into the agency. But it's not critical to what they're trying to do, or we're trying to do with this de-annexation process. So I think that to answer your question, Ron, there has been some talk. There's no firm plans now, but I would imagine over the next 6 months to a year, those plans will firm up and on what the agency is going to do with those properties. The agency, when you think about it, it only has 5 years left to go, and there's going to be a lot of planning that needs to be done during those 5 years to close down the district.
Well, if they sold the property, would it go into their coffers?
It would go into the urban renewal fund, right?
Okay, now, one other thing in the river agency, the developer out there, Mr. Douglas, have everything been worked out with him, or do you have to fool around with him at all?
Regarding individual developer agreements, those are not affected by this because the developer has to generate the increment within their specific area to get paid back. So this doesn't affect that one way or the other.
And that specific piece of property, Ron, is not in an urban renewal district. Those two mill sites that are on Celtice are not
Well, I
part of that.
misunderstood the question, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Amy?
We're working on the Four Corners project currently and looking towards Ignite to partner with us on that. How would this impact their ability to help with the BLM corridor portion there and the BNSF right-of-way? And we're still up in the air a little bit of what that's all going to look like. So,
The agency already has the money to do the project that is currently under construction, and they have set aside, and I forget what the amount is.
It's $2
Yeah,
million.
$2 million.
Thank you. That is set aside for the next phase.
one more question. And how will this impact the Arts Commission budget? Ignite currently helps substantially fund some of our current art projects and future art projects, and what can we expect to see in the future?
The way that the financial analysis was done was to look at all of the current projects and operations occurring, of which the Arts Commission would be a part of that, and to make sure that those would continue to be funded, and they will continue to be funded just as they are, unless the commission makes a different decision. But financially, they are able to do so.
Great, thank you.
And Amy, to answer that question, there will be, because the increment is less, there will be a small reduction in the amount that goes to the Arts Commission. And one of the things to think about would be that the city is going to be, under this proposal, getting back about $500,000 in taxes. As to whether the city steps up and makes up that difference, I'm thinking we're talking $20,000 somewhere where it would be a reduction into the Arts Commission. So that's certainly something that we could look at, that if it negatively impacts the Art Commission, that the city can react with their budget to
Great,
fill
thank
that
you.
gap.
Your Honor, also I think it's important to recognize that the financial analysis was done assuming no growth in values within either district. And we both know that those values will grow, which will create further increment for both the Lake and the River District.
Dan?
Could you just give a quick thumbnail of what else has to happen for this to get to the finish line and who's got to do it?
Thank you. What else will occur, it doesn't all have to happen, but it's going to occur, is I will be making an updated presentation with my colleague John Austin to the Urban Renewal Board, and the maps and legal descriptions have been submitted to the state for their review. They have to put their stamp of approval on that, and then we will go through the Planning Commission, but the real other important step is the actual adoption of the ordinance to create the change and to create the de-annexation.
And that's what you anticipate on July 13th?
And that will be July 13th, and that will, we wanted to have some kind of a hedge there because it has to be done by July 25th, I think it is.
24th.
24th. And so we wanted to have a little bit of room there in case some other hiccup came along.
Any other questions for Jim? Kiki?
Gee, I think this is, would be a great thing that they've been so wildly successful. We have the ability to recoup early. I have a couple questions. One is that I've heard this is about the bank saying they shouldn't have a problem with this restructure in cash flow coming from the agency. But I haven't heard what the bank has said about that. Has that been determined that, I mean, to me, it looks like, you know, the bank's the one who says we hold the paper and all these analysis are done saying, well, there's still enough collateral in cash to cover that note, but has the bank approved that? Is that part of the task?
And actually, I think
Well,
the mayor has a better.
there hasn't been a final approval from the bank. Keep in mind that a majority of this, 78% of it comes out of the River District, which the bank is not involved on. The bank is involved on the Lake District. And this affects the cash flows a bit, a smaller percentage than it was before, but it affects the cash flows. And anytime you affect the cash flows of an agency of which a bank has, in essence, a lien on, you need to get their stamp of approval. And I spoke with someone today from Washington Trust Bank that assured me that there was some processes that needed to be done, but he didn't see any issues in getting that final approval.
And so the switch then from taking more out of the River District is going to support more their approval?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other thing, has there been an analysis done on the geographic loss? And the only thing I'm thinking is that I'm supportive of this idea, but I don't want to make a mistake, and this is kind of a new process in the state. And I know that one of these agencies, if there is, say, a mill site or an abandoned structure that truly needs to be redeveloped, but it's just outside of a district, and they can only expand or extend their district by 10% of their geographical property. Is that about right?
Mm-hmm.
Then does this affect them? Has there been an analysis done on what's close to these districts? Does it hamper their ability to continue their good work on a piece of property that actually needs this sort of funding?
Within the River District, there is a little bit more of a risk for that to occur. The positive, though, is that I think that where I can think of properties that are not those two large parcels, where I can think of properties where that might occur, I think you will comfortably still fit within that 10% that you can expand. The other issue is that the one property may end up being, you may choose to work with the Urban Renewal Agency to actually open a new district, and you could pull those into that district as well. So you've got a couple options there available to you should those kinds of opportunities occur.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, as well as I don't know how that part works, but they could be annexed parcels as well, right? So I just wanted to make sure we weren't not being farsighted enough in making sure we can take care of continuing to improve that property along the waterfront and do whatever we can to keep it open to the public. That's what they asked us to do. So I want to make sure we're paying attention to that.
Well, there's some great opportunity on Southeast Way on that larger parcel as well as some smaller parcels. And we have been having that discussion internally and recognize that there are 2 or 3 different ways that we could go to still meet those needs.
Good. I do, and I guess that was my final takeaway, is I know how important that waterfront and the space being open to the public was, and so it's just my hope that we've been really cognizant of that.
Okay, Dan?
One more thing, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Jim, another thing that has changed since this was first proposed is that of the de-annexation, the total amount of the properties, that 100% of that does not go to the city. Some of it goes to NIC, the county, the highway districts. But of our chunk, we can't take the full percentage of that for our budget. Can you explain how that works?
Well, actually, you will, what you will receive in terms of an allocation is the full amount you're entitled. But of the 1.3 to 4 million range that we're talking, no, it's 1.2, I think, isn't it?
About 1.3.
Of that range that we've been talking about, and the numbers still aren't final on that, before 2006, the way that you increase one way that you increase your budget is by taking new growth. And that adds value, which you can tax against that value. Well, prior to 2006, urban renewal districts throughout the state were given that new value for their increment. But at the same time, the cities, counties, and highway districts were also given that growth to add to their budget. So in essence, there was double taxation. And in the 2007 legislature, there was some very wise legislators who carried legislation to change the law so that there was not the double taxation. And going forward, the urban renewal district was allowed to take that growth, and then when the urban renewal agency closed the district, that would still count as new growth for the cities, counties, and other districts, so that, because that's part of how urban renewal was sold. You forego it for so long, and then when you close the district, you get a substantial improvement in your tax base, which helps you take care of the needs of the citizens.
But of the proportion that we're taking, doesn't half of that have to go toward property tax relief?
So actually, what we're forecasting currently is just under $500,000 for the city. That's still a substantial assistance to us.
So we can increase our budget by $500,000 of new growth, calling it that, from the urban renewal district. And the other portion of the new growth, because there's another chunk in there, we can't take that as a budget. So mathematically, that does provide property tax relief.
That has to go back, because we collectively, Royal, we're both taking it, and so we can't take it again. We have to
I
give
see.
that back to the community, to the taxpayers.
So Dan, just in round numbers,
Right.
the total de-annexation amounts to $1.3 million. $500,000 of that would come back to the city, which is a taxing district. Some other $270,000 would come back to Kootenai County. $94,000 would go back to NIC. There's $41,000 that would go back to the Post Falls Highway District. And then almost $400,000 would go back to the taxpayers.
Excellent.
It's kind of that breakdown there. Woody?
Just, I was pondering, listening to all you guys and thinking back on this we've seen urban renewal do so many great things here, and we've gone to the wall defending it and taken some heat for it, and not always agreed on their projects and how they went about it. Lots of turmoil over a lot of years. This is the first time that I can remember where actually we're asking them to help us, help our city, and give back something at the same time. It's like, it's got to be the ultimate for them. I mean, they've taken their shots, they've taken their hits, they've done their battles, and this is like everybody wins. Everybody wins. All the little guys get some money, even EMS gets some money. It all helps. So I just want to say, through all the years and all the battles and all the things that they've done, I hope that they would feel good about this. It's got to be as good as ending it, and all the money goes back to the right folks. It's done its job, and that's kind of how I look at them. So with that, I'd like to make this motion to approve the submission of a planned amendments and request approval by Ignite Coeur d'Alene and to direct staff to take all necessary steps to complete the de-annexation of property from Lake and River Urban Renewal Districts by July 24th, 2016.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Dan?
I just wanted to second what Woody said, not second the motion, but I agree. And what Kiki said also earlier is that this, I believe, should be something that Ignite should look at as a sign of their success, and that they should be selling it to the public that way and say, look, we've been successful, we're able to give back before the time is out. It's just kind of disappointing behind the scenes that they have some great reluctance to do that. And I really wish that they would see the positive aspects of this as well. And hopefully, when you go back to them, I assume you are going back and you have to, that you also, you also see that kind of a positive attitude from the board and from their staff.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just add to that, in all fairness, I've only spoken to 2 of their board members, and they were extremely positive about this. So I don't know how fair those comments are, and I've heard nothing negative from any of the, again, I've only spoken to 2 on this issue. So in all fairness, they've been very supportive of this, the 2 that I spoke with, so.
I just have one thing to clarify real quick on the dates, because there was supposed to be a July 13th presentation on this, and we're directing staff to complete this by the 24th, so.
Which means that the whole process needs to be wrapped up, and that's really the what's called the drop dead date of the State Tax Commission. So we're going to have the final meeting on the 13th to pass that ordinance. All of the paperwork and everything is submitted to the Tax Commission, then they stamp their approval. That July 24th date is just that drop dead date.
So what we go through on the 13th will be the package with any input we need to give to assure final approval?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Ron?
Thank you.
Chestnut?
Yeah, I agree with what Woody had to say. I know that there's, I think most of us sitting up here have went through elections where we've caught a bunch of, whatever, from our opponents or other people. But I think that this is a good thing, and like Amy said, I've talked to a couple people, and they think it's, a good deal. And, we've said all along that we'll get back and give back money to our taxpayers, and I think that's what we're trying to do.
Dan?
As long as everybody, I would just say, the way I guess I have a sense of this is that we're going to recoup about $500,000 that's going to be added specifically to our public safety police budget, but Coeur d'Alene City taxpayers, I mean, they're going to have the benefit of that into our police, but they're not going to have to pay that extra $500,000. They're already paying it in a different route, so their taxes aren't going to go up, but we're going to have the benefit of it. And in fact, if I'm reading it right, hearing it right, that there's a chance for a little bit of a rebate, so to speak, at that. And, depending on how the whole budget package comes together. But so, yeah, I'm very enthusiastic about this, and I think it's meeting needs all over the place, so.
And 2, and I believe I'm correct on this, so I'll just get a head nod from you, John, but of the $400,000 that's returned to the taxpayers, that will be returned to taxpayers throughout the county. So it'll affect all of the taxpayers in the county, the $400,000 that's returned. So, any other discussion? Renata, would you like a roll call on that?
No,
Or
you
a
can
voice
just do a
vote?
group vote.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. I just wanted to thank Panhandle Area Council, Wally Jacobson and John Austin. They've been great to work with on this process. They've changed these reports probably 25 or 30 times from different scenarios, and working with the agency and working with the assessor. So I just wanted to thank Wally and John for all of their hard work on it. So thank you very much.